Hi, this is Colby from the Colby Cast.
This is Greg McLaughlin from the Rebel Base Card Podcast.
This is Ross Haldeman of Fantatrax.
Hi, this is Dan Z from Coffee with Kenobi, and you are listening to
Star Wars Reactions.
Star Wars Reactions.
Star Wars Reactions.
Star Wars Reactions.
Elegant discussion.
Elegant discussion.
For a more civilized age.
For a more civilized age. Aaron, you do it better, buddy. I did my best.
There's been an awakening. Have you felt it?
In 1977, George Lucas formed a legacy.
Force is with me, and I am with the Force.
Inspired by mythology, his saga has become a passion for many.
Feel the Force around you.
His legend has become our story.
It's true.
One of resistance.
We are the spark that'll light the fire that'll burn the First Order down.
Rebellion.
Rebellion is built on hope.
And redemption.
I am a Jedi, like my father before.
This is Star Wars Reactions.
Remember, the Force will be with you. Always.
Let's preface this. We are not your regular host. However, we've done this before. So let me just set this up. All right, so it's, we just got reactions back, and then some craziness happened. Some medical craziness happened. Want to say, as of right now, as we're recording this, everything's fine. It's going to be fine. Things have to be worked out. But once again, it kind of gave us the opportunity to kind of come in and have a little fun in their studio. Actually, no, I am not in their studio. I'm in this closet because it's the quietest place in my house. But anyway, so I was starting to think Anthony King from Force Coast Conversations, who's with me. Also not David Motters, and I'm not Aaron Harris, but work with me on this because I'm workshopping this. So it's not storm reactions because it wasn't a hurricane. I was thinking Star Wars Reactions Emergency Edition, right? Because I started thinking like, okay, I don't want to make this like, but then I started thinking, I'm like, all right, who are we going to have as like the tentpole of this? And I started thinking like, all right, if I was going to have someone, if I was in a hospital, if I was getting some medical treatment, and I'm like, who would I want to be my doctor? I said, I should say this is the Star Wars Reaction Dr. Quinn Medicine Woman Edition, or I could say Quincy Edition, or I could say ER 911. I started thinking like, do I want like Jack Klugman or do I want Jane Seymour? I was like, you know what? But then you think, what about ER, George Clooney? I just saw his villa in Italy, by the way, as we were going past it. So I'm workshopping this. Anthony King, what would you call this edition of Star Wars Reactions?
Oh, I think the emergency, reactions emergency is just fine, right? I'm happy to be the doctor, Dr. King. It was my
Dr. King
nickname in for my senior tennis team in high school. Yeah, so it tracks,
King, huh?
All right,
that works.
It works, yeah.
So obviously we're not your regular hosts. This is not your regular show, but we were trying to find, both of us were trying to find a venue to talk about Tron Ares, and that's not my show. And that's kind of not really your show, although it is Disney. I mean, you've taken some strides this year.
Yeah, ILM did the effects. It kind of works. If I really wanted to, I could stretch it.
It's a Disney property. I mean, come on. So the third installment, right? If you think about it, the original Tron, 1982. Let's fast forward about 28 years later to Tron Legacy in 2010. Also, my son was about 9 years old when that came out. Now let's fast forward, 13, 15 years later? Tron Ares.
15, yeah.
It's nuts. So I'm kind of like, I saw the original Tron, I was like 12 years old. What did you see Tron Legacy in a theater?
I did not, no. I saw both Tron and Tron Legacy for the first time when Disney Plus came out.
No way. All right. So what did you see first? Did you see them in order?
Yeah, I saw them in order. Yeah. If I'm aware that there is a sequel, right, I usually will not watch the sequel first. I'm just that particular kind of person.
Fair enough. So let me ask you this. Watching Tron for the first time, what are some of the things that kind of jumped out to you? Did you enjoy it? How did it go?
Yeah, well, I think the biggest criticism for a lot of people is that it didn't make sense to them, but it made sense to me. So I understood it on both the physical and the metaphysical level. So it worked. I enjoyed it. I had a great time. watching the first one. And I think it's pretty revolutionary in terms of the effects that it did. So like the Star Wars fan in me is like, oh, I can see the 1982 visual effects and computer graphics that they're incorporating to this thing. And I know it was kind of cutting edge for both that time, but also was cutting edge for like the gamer community too. Right. Video games had not really taken off for the home market yet at that point in time, but like arcades were still kind of all the rave. And Flynn's Arcade was like, it seemed like the cool hopping place to be for that community. So it rocks. I think it's great. Obviously it's of its era. So you got to have like that kind of like mentality going into it. But the benefit of this franchise is that like computer graphics and like just technology itself, it's allowed to grow over time. And these films prove that.
You know, coming off of, you know, like, of course, Star Wars comes out, obviously, 1977, and everybody is wanting to get on board with this. And I know that, you know, along with the Star Trek, the motion picture, and then Disney's first really foray into it, which is the black hole, which was really, you're like, this is not a Disney story. Little Disney-fied, but an incredible story and, you know, great visual effects and things like that. But then you get to 1982. Now, you know, Tron kind of comes at a great point because it's sandwiched in between, you know, Star Wars, Empire Strikes Back. You've had, you know, Blade Runner, you know, Raiders of the Lost Ark. So we're just having, you know, my generation, we're having a grand old time, and Tron just kind of fits in there. And for me, you know, like I'm going to those arcades. I'm seeing like the Tron spinoff game, which I suck at, by the way. But it was great playing. But yeah, arcades were a thing. I mean, it was huge. But it's something also when you're seeing on the screen, like this is, you know, these are computer graphics. This is stuff we really hadn't seen before. And, you know, like I remember getting it's either the DVD or the Blu-ray. I have this one where it's like, this is one I'm usually a big fan of, like extras. This one was almost like, it was so many hours worth of extras. This is almost like there's so many extras. There's almost too much. Yeah, but it is something where you see they really tried to put something into it. And even though like there wasn't a whole lot of story there, although another story is a friend of mine actually, the gentleman that played Ram in the original, I think his name's Dan Shore, actually moved out to Saipan where I lived for a time. And so my best friend actually got to hang with him. He was like trying to do like I think he was teaching over there and things like that. So it's like I have a tie to Ram,
which is a Tron connection
indirectly, a little Kevin Baconish as you were. But it was just something that it's just really weird one-off that was awesome. I had the figures. I wish I still had them because they are super expensive on the secondary market now.
Sure are.
By the way, next to my Star Wars figures, I love these things because they were see-through, but they had color and they had the discs and all that kind of stuff. I don't know why.
I think Reaction's doing a re-release though if you want them cheaper and not the original ones. If you just want like the the 3 3/4 ones that look very similar.
But yes, but then I remember being super excited when Tron Legacy came out. And, you know, I remember saying, like, I want to see this in the most expensive way possible. And, you know, you had the Daft Punk soundtrack and what seemed like a little deeper film with some homages back to the original with, you know, Bruce Boxleitner and Jeff Bridges, which was great. So Tron Legacy comes out. In seeing those two, did you watch them back to back? Did you give yourself some time to think it out, or did you just like binge it one night? How did you?
Oh, no, not a binge one night. I think it was the next night. Put on the next one. Gave myself a day in between there. So this was probably pandemic too. So like, you know, it's early 2020. You know, I think I had an afternoon or an evening, a couple of set of evenings maybe that I had open. So I was like, oh, I'm going to watch Tron. You know, why not? I pay for Disney Plus. I might as well get use out of this thing while I have it. So yeah, watched that and Legacy. And I thought Legacy was great. I think the big thing that stands out is how awesome that Daft Punk score is. I have it on vinyl because of that. It is epic. And, you know, we have the ride over here at Magic Kingdom Tron Light Cycle Run, which is, you know, really great too. And it infuses that soundtrack in it. And the light cycle is based off of that from this movie too. So they really upped the ante, I think, in this one. I think you can tell they really spent their effects. Not that they didn't spend the effects budget well back in '82, but certainly for 2010 standards, they really went above and beyond for this. I like the blue kind of hue for the movie too. I think that's a really good color palette choice for this thing. And it just introduces some interesting side characters too, like Flynn's kid, and I'm forgetting Olivia Wilde's character name, and really sets up this like kind of grand thing for the implications of the future of the franchise, and the fact that she could go into the real world. So I thought like, oh, I wonder if they'll address that in Tron Ares, and it's probably spoiler territory here, folks. So
Well, it
right,
has
Greg?
been.
Right, Greg? Right. Well, we'll talk spoilers on this thing. It kind of gets hinted at the end there that could, if they were going to make another one of these, that Jared Leto's character, who is also formerly from the grid and created of AI, he is AI himself, I guess technically, is on the hunt to find this other person that also was created in the grid and then somehow was able to manifest outside of that space without the 29-minute time limit.
And something I didn't really appreciate at the time, although I know that Cora with the ISO
Cora, yeah.
from Tron Legacy, who ends up, one of the downsides, of course, is that, I think after Tomorrowland didn't do that great in the box office a couple of years later, they kind of put, the kind of the hold on the franchise, although that there was an animated series, which is still on Disney Plus.
Uprising, I think.
Uprising. And that is a tremendous. If you have not, and you're still paying for Disney Plus, which, by the way, don't take that as a given at this point anymore, folks. But I would say that if you haven't, do yourself a favor and fire up Tron Uprising. I know that they did a tie-in comic for, I wouldn't say tie-in, but they did a little bit of a comic. I think it's sort of a prequel to the Tron Legacy that kind of delved a little more with the ISOs. Uprising deals a little more with some of the politics of the time, but there was just a lot of things that you could do with that. Something else, by the way, if you haven't dialed up Tron Legacy, Michael Sheen, who has also been in Good Omens, plays Zeus. In this, and he just does a phenomenal job. He's in the end of line club, that he just steals that scene. I mean, of course, Jeff Bridges, who's doing Clue, is a little more straight up when he gets into that, and of course, both Jeff Bridges characters are in that. But I would say I don't think it deserves the ire that it does get, because I really liked what it was trying to do. And if you got the movie, there were some interesting special features on it that kind of delved into what happened just after the movie ended, and I won't give that away, but there's some interesting things they were trying to do, and of course it just, Disney will, if they're not feeling they're making the kind of money they need to make, they will pull the plug. So if we fast forward, if we fast forward to surprisingly showrunner Jared Leto, who Tron Ares comes back. When you started seeing the trailers for it and started hearing about it, what did you think?
Before we get into the Tron Ares, I did want to note one last thing about Legacy, which I think is its ultimate legacy, which is it might be the first movie to try and do the de-aging, the digital de-aging of Jeff Bridges. And, you can argue, like, does it work? Does it look good? Right? I think that's up for debate, but someone's got to do it first. Right. So you have a through line from that to then, technology gets better and better and better, I guess, over the years. 6 years later, you get Civil War with that de-aging Robert Downey Jr. sequence, Rogue One famously with bringing Tarkin and Leia to life.
X-Men as well, because you had Patrick Stewart and Magneto.
Ian McKellen.
Ian McKellen. So they were de-aged to a bit.
Got it. Yes. So there, absolutely. So, Tron Legacy does have its place in the film, community at this point, because not most things, but there's a lot of major properties now that aren't afraid to use de-aging as a resource, and full movies, right? The Irishman had full movie of de-aging the entirety of the time, so you can make De Niro and Pesci look like they're 40 the entire time for the most part, when they're definitely double that at this point. So Tron Legacy certainly has a strong legacy. But yes, back to the Tron Ares of it all, I think your question was first kind of marketing about it. What did I think about it? I was honestly in when they announced the movie. I actually think Jared Leto is a really great actor. Now, personally, I don't. Is he an interesting guy? And when I say interesting, I don't mean it like that. Kind of like, oh, I'm really intrigued to know about every aspect of his life. I think it's like, oh, okay, yeah. Does it surprise me that he might be a person mired in potential controversies? Like that doesn't surprise me whatsoever.
No,
he's a method actor. He's done many interesting roles, and again, interesting roles. But he's an Academy Award winner. If you watch Dallas Buyers Club, you'll understand why. And he helped McConaughey arguably win his Academy Award for that too. And I really do like his Joker performance. And I think that was probably because of editing that he got edited out of that movie in a way, or made it look kind of the way that it does. The David Ayer's true vision of that film is yet to be seen, which features that. And he did a couple films over the years. The Little Things came out during the pandemic. That was really
Blade
good.
Runner 2049.
But of course, how could I forget his really great job in 2049? No, that's not. That's very. I'm upset that I didn't think about that on the spot there. But even Morbius, right? He wasn't the problem of that movie. I think he gets blamed for a lot of it there, arguably, but that's not his fault. There's a lot of moving pictures behind the scenes that are making things the way they are. But overall, I think Jared Leto is a really good actor at the craft that he does, and there's some degree of respect that I have for that. So, I think hearing that he was involved, and I read some of those early comments that he had from the start, was like he's such a Tron, like this is his franchise, that he's primarily the one why this movie gets made, right? I think Disney was like, we're shutting down the potential legacy, arguably a direct legacy sequel that follows the story of Korra and I forget Flynn's kid's name.
Flynn,
I think it's Sam. Okay, so Sam. Disney shuts that down. Tron's kind of in limbo, and like he's the only one that's like calling them up every so often, like, hey, I'd love to do it. Let's do a Tron thing. Let's keep the franchise alive, right? So it does take arguably like 14, 15 years to even get to this point, and it's largely because of him. So if you're a Tron fan and you like Ares and you're happy to see that there's more, and you're like, oh, I can't believe like Jared Leto's a part of it, well, you arguably have to thank him to some degree, because you don't get this if it's not because of him. So he is an executive producer on this. I think he had his hands in the story of this thing. But yeah, hearing how much passion that he had for this franchise, especially when it's people have been saying, oh, it's confusing, I don't understand it, it doesn't, that's largely been the biggest like complaints against the Tron franchise, at least that I've understood over the years. He's like, I got it, and I want to honor that moving forward. And I think the story that they put forth in this one really respects what has come before in many ways, and also is like, although we're not technically a direct sequel to Legacy, we're not going to forget that it exists, and we're gonna honor it at the end there and leave us to what could be potentially, if there ever was, a next one that does kind of pay off those earlier aspects that are teased at in Legacy at the end of that film. So marketing, I think once I saw the first poster, the red scheme, I think that was a beautiful color choice, right? If blue was Legacy, right, then the opposite is red. And you could even argue that this is the Dillinger family film from a different point of view too. If this isn't Flynn's film, this is the Dillinger family and that dealing with that. And I think that leads into like the post-credit scene with this, or the mid-credits, if you will, where it could lead to, oh my gosh, what an incredible future there could be. Now, I'm sure we've all seen the article that's come out that basically said Disney's shelving this, no more Tron for the future here. But it great. Nine Inch Nails got announced as being the score for this, and I think they do a fantastic job on that front there, both in terms of their work in the grunge scene and also in movies too. Right, Social Network is a great score. Soul, the film from 2020 that Pixar did, is also another incredible score too. So knowing that they were behind this, I'm like, okay, win. I saw some of the more supporting cast like Jodie Turner-Smith from the Acolyte fame, Greta Lee, so many great people
Evan
involved
Peters.
in Evan Peters, of course, too, as the grandchild Dillinger and all this, and a little sequence from Cameron Moynihan too.
Just
Yeah,
just
little,
there.
little bit of Cal Kestis in this thing. So, yeah, between getting all the information, seeing the first trailer, I actually saw like 5 to 10 minutes of this movie back in August. I think I shared that with you. Yeah, so I saw the bridge sequence when they launch Ares and I guess the second in command. I don't know if she gets a name.
Athena.
In the movie. Athena. Sorry. Yes, absolutely. Okay. My apologies for forgetting that. Ares and Athena, when they get launched out to go hunt down Greta Lee's character, and go across the bridge and all that. And that's the whole sequence. Like I got to see that at Destination D23 this past year. So plug for that con too, to go check it out now because they're starting to do film showcase panels at that thing too. So it's it's only going up from there. And yeah, got to see early footage for this thing, and it blew me away there. And that since then I've definitely been an acolyte and disciple of being like, hey, you guys need to go see this on the biggest screen, the loudest theater possible, and it is a loud movie. So find that theater that works for you, whether it be a Dolby screen or IMAX or 3D, 4DX, RPX, whatever. Find it, sit down there, get a bucket of popcorn, and have a great time.
Agreed. And I would say, I kind of came in with, I'm excited to see another Tron. Yeah, I'm going to be there. And I would say it was nice because my son and I got to go, and so now he's turning almost 24. And, so there's
like, where did the time go?
I know. But we got to see it at an AMC that had, I think it was a laser, and so the seats.
Okay. Yeah.
Not only did you get the recliners that you could have food ordered to, that was one thing, but also you felt the vibrations and, of course, the soundtrack. Trent Reznor and Nine Inch Nails. I mean, they're
they knocked it
no
out of the
more
park.
Gen X than that.
Yeah.
But what I would say is that if you think about if I'm going to give like Tron Ares like a 3 out of 4. I would say that if you take away that soundtrack, it's a 2 out of 4. I would say in this case, and I'd be echoing what I've kind of heard from some online, that I do think that the music does elevate the material. Now,
it does.
You can argue that, you're not really supposed to go multiple years, decades between films because you are going to lose something, as we kind of saw with, even going back to, the gap between Luke Skywalker appearing in Return of the Jedi and then, at the end of The Force Awakens there's a bit of a gap, and we did kind of miss a little bit that we saw, like some of the Mandalorian kind of goes like, hey, the what ifs. But in this case, I think because the stories themselves, Tron wasn't necessarily known for these real deep. You want to go watch Foundation? I fell asleep through it personally. But like if you want that kind of Asimovian sci-fi, go for it. You can get it in spades, kids. But in this one, I'm looking more for the visual experience. I'm looking more for the movies. I didn't think for a second that they were going to get Daft Punk to reform and do a new soundtrack. Although I'm like, stranger things have happened. Oasis.
Sure.
But when I heard that Nine Inch Nails was going to be doing it, I'm like, yes, this is perfect. And sitting through that, I don't think I've bought a soundtrack so fast. Like as soon as I'm like, yes, I'm buying this, and I'm jamming to it the next day. But what I would say is, like, for what they were trying to do, I was on board with it. I liked, like I said, Greta Lee does a really great job, and I kind of like her angle. Evan Peters, who I've seen him in a few things. I know he was in Lower Decks. He does the voice of the Lower Decks, and I've seen him in The Boys. So I like him, and I thought, a little over the top Dillinger. I think Mrs. Dillinger, Mama Dillinger gets a little short sighted. She doesn't really do that much. But I did really like Ares. I liked Leto as Ares, and I liked Athena because I thought that they, if you need somebody who's sort of AI, kind of moody, little shallow. Well, there's Leto right there. That's not a big acting stretch. But I did like what they were trying to do. But I could see that if you pick this thing apart, especially given the amount of time between, you're probably going to lose some things. And so on one hand, you're kind of trying to take a cult film and make it into a mass market franchise. So you're going to have to strip it a little bit down to like, all right, y'all know light cycles, right? All right, cool. We're going to have some of those in there. And they tear up the city, and that's probably one of the better sequences in it. But it got creative as far as like what they could do, because we kind of figured like, well, it seems like it's solid. We know it from the original Tron, things like that. But I really liked what they were trying to do. I think there were some times where you go, okay, Jared, you kind of, but I'm not going to fault him for trying to get this off. And I would also say that, well, we heard it was dead before. And so I think this is one of those things where it's like, especially when you decided to make a theme park ride on it, Disney knows there's something still to this. It may not come in a movie form, but I could totally see this as animation with a score, with some music and still continue. There's still a lot of story to be told, and I think they could find a more profitable way to do it that would be happy for all parties involved.
Yeah, this film is definitely cultivating a cult following already. There's
that cult keeps getting smaller and smaller, by the way. That'd be like me and a few others.
There's a cult of people that like Tron, and I assume there's a cult of people that like all of the Tron franchise, right? And then there's a cult of people that like Tron Ares a lot. And I've seen this outpour of support and admiration on social media over the last couple of days here since its release. And it's that pumping score. It's these great visual effects. You can't deny that they spent the budget where they needed to on this thing. And it's arguably a timely story, right? There's a lot of fear of AI and self-sentient beings. What's the next phase of that? And it kind of preys on that fear that we have of like, oh, well, is AI coming for us? Is it coming for our jobs? Are they going to 3D print these robots that are AI features are sent into their brain, and now they can teach classes and be, do automated tasks. And I'm sure that could help our world in many ways, but what do we lose after that? So it was interesting, though, to see on the adverse side of things, like this is an AI that's learning to become human, right? There are other stories that have tried to tackle this in the past, right? I unfortunately can't think of any off the top of my head, but it's certainly not a new kind of take on things, but given the current climate, right, it is much more of literally you're seeing these characters get 3D printed. And then, the permanence thing is a kind of a convoluted concept to some degree. But that these are some real world issues that they're tackling right now, which I think is the importance of the Tron franchise, is because it can talk about these areas of our society as technology grows and have these action adventure serials. It's now a serial at this point, I would argue, that kind of goes into that realm a little bit there, right? The first Tron is talking about, the kids are getting sucked into the video games, right? If Tron Legacy is about, oh my gosh, VR experiences are losing our humanity, right? We're getting locked into the immersive gameplay of all this stuff that's existing at this time. And then this third one is now about AI is coming for all of us. How can we protect ourselves? How do we defend ourselves? What's the next phase of life after this? It's a really interesting tale, I think, from all those perspectives.
Well, not just that, but thinking about basically building combatants to fight your battles for you.
Yeah.
And you think about an allegory to drones being
literally
used in combat.
Absolutely.
Where it's if you remove, you take that removal of the humanity or, humans from one side of it, then, it could potentially cause, and has caused, where's the conscience in that? If you're basically just launching, guys versus robots and things like that. And so that don't really have it. And so, but I also like the fact that it was something that it was clearly shown that, Dillinger thought he could control, and he had no control on it from the get go, which is really good. It's I think you should I hope you brought your umbrellas. And I thought, which now you kind of go back, all right, that's a really important line. If you're going to sell him a little later on when he's talking about Depeche Mode, spoilers, that was a little tougher to kind of, but I get the overall theme of it, but it does put up some pretty good themes. And like I said, when we talk we're once again talking about maybe where a story was not exactly as, if you're talking about a through line that doesn't exactly match with a story that maybe had some holes in it. I think we've done nothing but talk about that kind of stuff for the last several years. And so I don't really see, like you can kind of see, I think if anything now people are a little more like sensitive to like, yeah, I think at some point, because we're kind of maybe getting a little bit tired of just, we like the spectacle, we'll go see it. That's why you're trying to get us our butts in seats and away from streaming services. We want a story to go along with that, and we think you can give it to us. And I guarantee you, it's not going to happen if you take an AI type approach, or you kind of do it. You don't pay enough attention to it.
Yeah, absolutely. I think 100% on all that front, and I think this film might have more to say in the next couple of years, right? I think this is one of those that we might look back on it and go, well, they were kind of ahead of the curve on some of these thoughts here, and I did like seeing things from like I think the drone example is a really good one too, but like literally seeing what hacking looks like from a different perspective, right? I thought that was really creative of how they made that sequence work.
I loved it. I loved
that was really cool. And I think both you and I probably geeked out a lot about seeing the original grid come back into play and how well they just recreated 1982 graphics and film and the look of the film too, versus
just a little bit of a grain, but on
a
screen
grain.
that arguably was like an order of magnitude better of what I would have seen in 1982.
Absolutely. Yep, for sure. So like that honor and homage to that, I gotta think it's probably Leto's idea. As a fan of that, he was like, I gotta get Jeff Bridges in this film somehow, and we gotta recreate this, and it's gotta look exactly the same. Like, you guys cannot take liberties with this, and that's really only something that like a deep fan of the franchise would really care about. So maybe we gotta give Leto more of his props there, folks. There's a larger fan base here.
The one to see Bit again, which really is like is a deep cut from that, because Bit kind of gets tied into not only the original Clue, but later on when Flynn sees him, but also the fact that when he got off the grid from Light Cycles, the hole was still there that was created by Flynn and them before, or like from the crash Light Cycle, and so that was just it was just really smart. It was just like when we saw like Flynn's Light Cycle in Tron Legacy, and you're going, which I have, which one of the toys that I have from Tron Legacy, I'm very happy I did, because that was a gorgeous Light Cycle, the white one. But yeah, it's one of those where I'm like, I guess I just didn't ask a ton from this movie. I was just happy it was there. Now, granted, I could say like, yeah, it has some flaws to it, but boy, in between, major, like we're months and months away from Mando and Grogu, and I still have kind of feelings towards how I'm going to kind of go in that, and maybe I just need to see another trailer, or maybe I don't. But I would say that the marriage of great visuals, music, I think, like I said, there was one more little tempo it could have had, but I think it would have been a tough order for anybody to have done to create this. And it's a shame it won't get anything right now, but I don't think we're done with Tron yet.
Yeah, give it another 15 years. We'll see. We'll see what happens, right?
See.
I
won't be standing to do that podcast.
That's right.
I'll still do a podcast with you. I won't be standing doing the podcast with you.
Jared Leto's in his early to mid 50s, and he's the ageless wonder of all things. So, like, he might still be looking like he's in his 40s 15 years from now. So
he'll get to say the grid.
Get Olivia Wilde in all this, and let's see where the story is intended to go.
I like it. All right. Well, I think that we're going to pause this conversation on Tron Ares for now. We're going to let other folks pick it up from here. But I'm happy you liked it. I'm happy I liked it. And I hope that if it's still out in theaters, when you hear this, go watch it, because I do think it's kind of like, I remember like taking my son to see Speed Racer in IMAX. Now, that was the first time and the last time I took him to an IMAX movie. Not a big fan of those IMAX movies, but I would say, as crummy a story as that was, visually, they killed it on that, because it was a fun IMAX experience. And that's how I kind of feel with Tron Ares, where it's like a little bit let down, maybe a little bit let down by the story, but overall had a great time, and I would go see it again if time permitted.
That's right.
All right. This wouldn't be even though this is an emergency version of Star Wars Reactions. This is still an episode of Star Wars Reactions. So I was hastily looking for a dad joke, Star Wars dad joke, and I will not spare you from this experience, nor will I spare the audience who faithfully tunes in each and every episode for this. So after a exhausting 10-second Google search, I did find some. So if you've heard this before, oh well, y'all been warned. All right. So let's see. My question to you is, why did everyone in the Resistance stop speaking to Finn on the planet with the giant sun?
Oh, wow. Lay it on me, because that was a long one.
I'll say that again because someone actually had to type this out. Why did everyone in the Resistance stop speaking to Finn on the planet with the giant sun?
Wow, I'm waiting to hear this one because I got nothing.
He called it a ray of sunshine.
Ah, I see. It's a bad joke, yes, but
yes,
it works.
It's not good. It's not good, but
it works.
For Daz
I would have
Davies,
never guessed it.
Daz is going to love that joke because it's got Ray in it. But anyway, and of course it was Resistance, so we're talking sequel anyway. That's it. All right. So I know, since you're not the regular co-host of Star Wars Reactions, folks may not have heard of Force Ghost Conversations. This is your chance to enlighten us and let us know where we can continue the conversation with you, Mr. Anthony King.
Well, of course. And a little disappointed you didn't find a Tron dad joke. I don't know if those exist out there. Maybe we're too niche of a
Give me
fandom.
another 30
to even...
seconds while you're going through
I'll vamp over here and tell people where they can find me while you're looking for that. So yeah, we are. I am the host of Force Ghost Conversations, your cozy deep dive for all things Star Wars and Lucasfilm adjacent things. And we are a weekly podcast, so you can find us in all of the Spotify, Apple, any place you can find a podcast these days, we'll be there. And we have episodes weekly about anything and everything in the galaxy far, far away. If you want to continue the conversation because you like what you heard here, we can also be found on X, Instagram, YouTube, TikTok, Threads, Blue Sky. Just search for Force Ghost Conversations again. We'll be there in some capacity.
And in that perfect moment, I did find, thanks to AI, right?
See?
All right. We're going to give you a bonus. This is not a Star Wars dad joke. This is a Tron dad joke because I'm on brand tonight. All right. I'm not saying the grid is big, but when Kevin Flynn told his son, I'm still to create the perfect system, he was talking about a new router.
See, it's not a joke, but it works as a sentence.
That's true. Well, I could say, all right, why was Clue so bad at fishing?
Ooh, okay. Lay it on me.
Why was Clue so bad at fishing? He could never get past the firewall.
I was just thinking in my head, I was like, oh, it's probably something to do with the tech of it all, but you never know with these dad jokes, right? It could be like, oh, well, he just didn't have a line long enough or something. I don't
See, just like the trilogy, those were jokes, but they weren't really connected. They were,
That's
but
right.
They weren't. See, just must.
That's kind of the good thing about Tron, I guess. One last Tron note there. There's something to be said, though, about the disjointed nature of it, where each of these you can just hop in without having really to need to know what came before, which is kind of refreshing in some way, but also not refreshing too at the same time. It's a catch, it's a catch-22. We are so much the fans of, like, we're not casual fans for a lot of things, right? So it's like, oh, I know every detail just about of like everything that I watch. And I consume everything, but then it's like, oh, there's a franchise here that's not fully connected like that. How do we make this? How do I rationalize my head around this? So it's a different experience again, but it works.
All right. So we're gonna bring this episode of Star Wars Emergency Reactions to a close. If you want to continue the conversation on my side, I am, you know where to find me. I'm at Rebel Base Card, pretty much wherever you're going to find the stuffs, whether you go to the Grams or whether you go to Facebook or Threads or X. You can look for Rebel Base Card in your podcatcher. But if you want to continue listening to Aaron Harris, David Motters, who will hopefully be back soon to give you the proper reactions to this, I would say, for Anthony King, I'm Greg McLaughlin, and this is Star Wars Reactions, your place for elegant discussions for a more civilized age.
This podcast is not endorsed by the Walt Disney Company or by Lucasfilm Limited. It's intended for entertainment and informational purposes only. The official Star Wars website can be found at www.starwars.com. Star Wars. All names, sounds, and any other Star Wars related items are registered trademarks and or copyrights of Disney and the respective trademark and copyright holders. All original content of this podcast is the intellectual property of Star Wars Reactions unless otherwise indicated. Star Wars Reactions. Elegant discussion for a more civilized age.